Hello, welcome to our channel, where we set out to discuss wonderful great works of literature.
Well dressed in elegant clothing, because
Why the hell not? So today we're going to be discussing Boris Pasternak, and he was a famous Soviet writer as well as a poet. I think he's more known for his poetry. However, he is most famous, I guess, in sort of the literary world for his novel Dr. Zhivago.
Dr. Zhivago.
Dr. Zhivago. So, just a bit of a biographical note here. Boris Leonidovich Pasternak was born in Moscow in 1890 in the Russian Empire and died in 1960 in the Soviet Union. So, I suppose I should start off by saying that this was a novel. The novel turned out not quite as I expected it would from the beginning.
Why?
So I remember a while ago I watched the 1965 American adaptation of the novel, the same name, Dr. Zhivago, and it struck me, and that's the reason why I actually wanted us to read it, because I thought you might enjoy it as well, because it was a great romance.
You never want to turn me off any Russian literature.
That's right. So I watched that movie, and you know, there's a villain in it. There's Yuri and Lara, and there's this great love affair that's happening amidst the turmoil of the 1905 Russian Revolution, leading all the way up to the World War II, and it was quite a romantic movie. And I thought the book would kind of have that same plot.
Flavor, at least a flavor to it.
At least a flavor of it.
Yeah.
But apparently not. So that's a very Americanized, romanticized version of the actual novel. Now the novel is quite wonderful in the sense that it does have a lot of philosophical merit, and it shows the turmoil and sort of the chaos of the revolutionary period and its aftermath as well.
And would you say, like, historically it was pretty accurate?
I should say it was historically accurate.
I feel like I learned a lot of history about the Russian Revolution by kind of cross-checking with you as we went through.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
well,
because if you don't know Russian history, it is a little bit harder to follow. So if you're interested in Russian history, or I guess a history buff in that area, would probably really find this interesting.
Yeah. Well, Pasternak, he ended up winning the Nobel Prize in 1958. Mm-hmm. However, he had to deny it and denounce it because the Soviet authorities pretty much instilled a smear campaign against him and said that, you know, this was exposing too much of Stalinism and all the problems and all the terror that the Stalinist regime had on the people. And it was, in terms of propaganda, not a very good very nicely reflected book in that respect. And so he was condemned by the sort of the Union of Writers, and they essentially forced him to not accept this award. But I think his family in 1980 or sometime around then, they actually accepted the award on his behalf, but he would have been probably, he was dead by then, right?
Yeah. What was that joke about?
Oh geez, I don't remember what that joke was, but it was, yeah, there was a comic or something someone had drawn, and you know, he's in the gulag, and there's another sort of inmate as well, and he's chopping down a tree, and
he's like, what is your crime?
Pasternak goes, so what are you in here for? The guy goes, what are you in here for? And Pasternak says, you know, oh, I want a Nobel Prize. What did you do? What crime did you commit? So anyway, so it's like, it kind of shows the sign of the times, if you will. But anyway, so going to the actual substance of the book, I think we found it challenging in different respects.
Yeah, I mean, I found it challenging because at first I thought there was like 25 different characters, but then I found out that really you could, depending, and they don't tell you how they interchange the character name, but so for example, the main character, Dr. Zhivago, can be known as first name basis Yuri, full name Yuri Andreevich, Dr. Zhivago, Yura, Yura Andreevich. Like, it depends on the context in which he's presented, apparently, and that's quite common in Russian literature and in Russian culture, to just, depending on the context, a Russian person would know that this name is the same name, but I didn't know that, so I was very lost. I'm like, who is this entry? Like, who is this Dr. Zhivago? Like, I didn't. And
you
then
put it together, so it sounded like
yeah, and then there was Larissa was also Lara, but they never tell you that, like, oh, Larissa, and then somebody calls her name Lara. Like, you never really. Antipova. You don't really know. So I was like, wait, hold on.
Yeah.
Who is Lara again? And Sean was like, that's the main character. I was like, wait, what? I thought Larissa was. And he's like, it is Larissa. I was like, oh my god, I thought there was like 4 different characters and there's only 2.
Yeah.
Or
But you
get used to it after a while.
But there are also a lot of characters.
There are.
Like we looked it up, and there's a map of all the different characters, and there's a.
Then you can zoom into it.
No, but maybe we can put it up on the screen afterwards. But it's
in the corner.
Yeah, in that corner there. But it is like a tremendous number of characters as well. And keeping track of them all. And they come in, and see, this is what I found also very challenging. It weaves in and out. And it's not weaved in a very, maybe it's lost in translation again, but I have a friend who grew up in the Soviet system, and ever since 2003 it said that it's part of the Russian curriculum, so they all have to read this book. But he said, it's pretty much well acknowledged that he was a much better poet than he was a novelist. But I don't quite like it goes too much attention to detail in a scene to paint a scene, and it's beautifully written, but then it jumps radically into a completely different setting, different time period, and you're just like, where's the continuity here? And it was rather challenging to follow the plot, and I would say the romance or the actual real
it was less about the romance than the
real passionate love relationship only kind of transpired near the last quarter of the movie of the book.
Yeah, and at that point I was so frustrated by that love story that I was like, I don't know, I didn't really. It was sad, but I wasn't like attached to the characters in the end.
But that goes interesting. Like, what about Isn't there something about Lara? I didn't really buy her love for Yuri.
No, because she constantly referred to her attachment still to her husband. How although she knew that he was in search of power and greater ideal of this like greater good for all people. That he was in a sense like almost I don't know if it's an idealist.
Yeah. He was revolutionary.
It ends up being a revolutionary and kind of going down a dark path, but she believed that he truly believed that what he was doing was for the good of all people, and so she understood that like the I guess all-encompassing devotion to that cause, and she still seemed to be very in great admiration for that. Even though it abandoned her, and like she didn't even know whether he was alive or dead most of the time. Yeah,
well, it seems like he didn't treat her like he adored her, but he had to prove himself to her. That's why he had set off to do all these grand things. But then she also had a daughter, and like she was struggling to keep them
like
fed.
if I were Laura, I'd be like, okay, I still would like to be fed though, please. Like I think he gave her some money, like but.
Still like to be fed though.
Like I mean, at that time, it's not like she could
provide for.
She was like a laundress or something like that.
Yeah.
Like she didn't have barely enough to care for her child.
Yeah.
Remember, like when there's this scene when like Yuri enters into it and there's like rat infestation everywhere and anyway, but she still seemed to like very much idolize the idolist.
Yeah, very true. Exactly.
And then it was hard to believe in that sense that she was. I mean, I know you could potentially love more than one person. I understand that, but it was harder to buy her love for Yuri when it seemed to be. She seemed to be so. I guess, I don't know, just like couldn't do anything with Yuri, not because she was like technically everyone thought he was like a dead, right? And so she could actually marry him, but she didn't marry him because of her love still for her husband, is what I believed it to be.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and so what's interesting in this novel is scattered throughout and also in the appendices, like almost at the last few pages of the novel, it's just a bunch of his poetry. And when we were reading the poetry at the end, it was beautiful. It was very well captured, and it was like sort of moments in time of his sort of like relationship as it unfolded with Laura, and sort of his musings on society, and the sense of loneliness that he was feeling, where all of his friends, and he was the only one who was like a nonconformist. He was the only one who was questioning the dogma at the time, and then shocked that people still would repeat the same old tried sort of like phrases just to get by in the day, just to show that they're still part of the collective. And I think this is one of the reasons why I think he was so censured by the Soviets, is because he did sort of bring up this, like the welfare of the individual over a collective progress, pushing society forward, because he saw what the outcomes of that could be. And so it's a very interesting sort of reflection on. He even has like a few reflections on religion as well, and God, and the place of man in God.
And it's kind of interesting too, because you do see he's not this character that just stays like fixed in a character either. Like he does kind of, his character changes over time, and there's like a point where there's some moments where I found it quite tragic. Like there were really profound moments throughout the book, like although often I got lost in the characters and the like shifting of era and scene, there were some very profound like visual parts of this book that you can't help but think that this was based on reality, right? Like and the deep loneliness and suffering, and he almost gives up on humanity in all its entirety and just lives like a hermit for a long time, and eating just like surviving just off of potatoes, right? So it was there were some very powerful moments, but I didn't believe in the romance. The romance actually irritated me a little bit. I was which is unlike me. Usually even if it's a romance I find icky, I still find I'm captivated by it. I didn't really care about the romance, but I was more captivated by his like journey of really, in a sense, it was a journey both physically but also spiritually.
But the thing about the romance, again, I think Laura to me she's not a sentimentalist. Like she's a survivor.
She's a very cold character.
Yeah, calculating in many ways. Like she gave herself up to that very wealthy government official, or whoever he was at the beginning.
But she thought that Yuri was coming. Oh no, in the beginning, yeah.
Yeah.
But at the end, she did think that Yuri was coming.
But then, anyway. So it's well worth a read. But I would certainly say, if you've watched the movie or you have any recollection of what that movie might be about,
don't expect it to be
completely dismiss it, because it has nothing to do with it. Very, very little has to do with the actual movie. So don't look at this as a wonderful romantic book. This is definitely a deeper book and more complex.
Yeah.
And even when it's executed, it's not executed in a very easy read.
And you might have to just I found we almost stopped each part, and I was like, okay, what just happened in that time in Russia? What was happening? Because I didn't understand the context. And if you don't understand the context, then it's hard to follow it in and out. So I actually found it helpful to kind of do a little bit of research in between.
So
but it's good. Like I feel like it's a great way to learn about Russian history, and if you want to stop and learn about it, because I feel like that's not something taught, at least in Canadian curriculum, at all. And it's fascinating. So
it is.
Okay, are you ready for this? What everyone's the most excited about when we do our ratings.
Okay, so I think I would rate it a 3.6 or a 3.7.
Okay. I would give it a 3.2.
3.2?
Yeah.
Wah, wah.
Wah, wah.
And why would you say?
It's just very tedious. I feel like if it weren't for you, I wouldn't have finished it.
Yeah, fair enough.
Or I would have been speed reading through parts of it.
Yeah. I think the expectations coming into the novel totally colored the way we.
Yeah, he's like, it's a great romance, and I'm like, what? I'm waiting for it.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Oh, let us know in the comments if you've read this book, or if you have any other sort of Russian literature that you recommend. The next video will be capturing. Will probably not be a Russian work.
And this one didn't have a duel in it, did it?
This one shockingly did not have a duel. Well, anyway, thank you for joining us this evening.
Have a good
Take
evening.
care. Bye bye.